Scientists have discovered something unusual on the seafloor miles off the Oregon coast to help them better understand earthquake zones.
About 2/3 of Florida occupies a peninsula between the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. It has the longest coastline in the contiguous United States, approximately 1,350 miles.
The mysterious green banana in the Gulf of Mexico is a scientific puzzle. Researchers are only starting to piece it together.
This region holds many mysterious secrets that sometimes leave experienced geologists in awe of their discoveries. Recently, another mystery was unearthed, leaving everyone mystified. What was found on the Florida coastline? The discoveries. For many years, strange smoke rising from the dense marshes in northwest Florida has stirred both curiosity and concern. The story of the so-called Waukulla Swamp volcano dates back to the 1800s. Reports claim that people as far away as Tallahassee could see smoke and sometimes a reddish glow rising from the swamp. The New York Times even wrote about it. Some believe they were witnessing signs of a hidden volcano, despite Florida not being known for such activity. The smoke suddenly stopped in 1886, the same year as a large earthquake in Charleston, South Carolina. Some believe the two events were connected. A few courageous explorers attempted to find the source. In the 1870s, a team supported by the New York Herald Tribune set out to investigate. The group comprised 3 guides and 1 reporter, but the trip went poorly. They had to traverse wild, swampy land, and one of the guides fell from a tree. The reporter later succumbed to swamp fever. Over the years, more stories came out. Some people thought pirates were hiding in the swamp. Others guessed it was a secret moonshine site. Maurice Thompson wrote about it in the 1800s and 80s, describing a constant column of smoke that was visible for 40 years. Fishermen told newspapers that birds avoided flying over the spot and that sometimes the smoke would vanish for an hour, then shoot upward like a silent blast. At night, the smoke was often accompanied by a flickering light. On some nights, the glow was so intense that it illuminated the sky. Some people believed it was fire, not a volcano. Modern scientists concur. Meteorologist Tom Searles explained that Florida is far from the tectonic plates that cause volcanic eruptions. Instead, he stated the smoke likely originated from peat fires. These fires can smolder beneath the surface for years, sustained by dry vegetation and ignited by lightning. The mystery of the Waukulla smoke may never be fully unraveled, but it remains one of Florida's most peculiar stories. However, that is not the only discovery. In 2020, another discovery attracted media headlines, and some geologists were terrified. What was it? Let's find out about the Florida mysteries. Off the coast of Florida, deep beneath the waves, massive blue holes rested on the ocean floor. These strange round openings had formed thousands of years earlier, and what lay inside them had long remained a mystery. Now, scientists intended to change that. A team of researchers prepared to explore a 425-foot deep blue hole known as Green Banana. The hole lay about 155 feet below the ocean's surface. It had not been discovered by scientists, but rather by fishermen and recreational divers who shared stories among themselves. Like sinkholes found on land, Green Banana featured a wide, steep drop, and no one knew where it led. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration stated that numerous underwater holes are scattered along Florida's Gulf Coast. Still, it is unclear how many exist or exactly where they can be found. Most of them are believed to harbor a wide variety of sea life, including plants, fish, and other creatures that live in and around their edges. According to scientists at Mote Marine Laboratory, the blue holes likely formed between 8,000 and 12,000 years ago, when the shoreline stretched nearly 100 miles farther out to sea than it does now. Sea levels were lower back then. There is no record of the exact day Green Banana was found. Local divers and fishermen searched for it based on stories they heard. Sometimes they returned empty-handed. At other times, they found themselves above a deep, hidden pit. Emily Hall, a scientist at Mote, explained that divers searched through trial and error. Some days they returned empty-handed, while on others, someone would yell out that they had found one. Jim Coulter, another Mote researcher, began searching for holes in the middle of the 1990s. Since then, he has confirmed around 20 in the area, but believes there are at least 60 in total. A few were reported on the Atlantic side of Florida, but those have not been confirmed. Coulter told CBS News that every time he dove, he wanted to go farther. Each step deeper made him wonder what awaited below. He described it as thrilling to go somewhere almost no one had ever reached. In May and September of 2019, a team of scientists and amateur divers explored a blue hole named Amberjack. It was 350 feet deep and located about 30 miles from Sarasota. They hailed from Mote, Florida Atlantic University, the Georgia Institute of Technology, and the U.S. Geological Survey. They carried over 600 pounds of gear and dove into the hole with assistance from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Inside Amberjack, they discovered tiny forms of life, carbon, and nutrients. At the bottom, they also found 2 small tooth sawfish, both dead yet still intact. These fish were rare and at risk of extinction. One of the 12-foot-long bodies was brought back for study. The team planned to explore Green Banana in August of 2020 and again in May of 2021. Coulter had never reached the bottom himself, stating it was too deep. Hall mentioned that the work required steady nerves and a strong will. She expressed feeling drawn to the larger holes, particularly those with wide openings, ranging from 75 to 100 feet across. Smaller ones, as narrow as a city manhole, made her hesitate. Scientists hoped to discover more than just life. They also sought clues about how the holes might connect to Florida's groundwater and how they could affect the nearby sea. Some researchers wanted to determine whether the holes should be protected, while others studied their role in the movement of carbon through the planet. Coulter stated that no 2 holes were identical, although some exhibited similar characteristics. With more searches ahead, the team hoped to understand how each hole functioned and whether they were connected beneath the ocean floor. The team also noticed that nutrients were moving upward through the water in the sinkhole. This suggested that some sources of food might rise out of the hole, while other creatures, like the dead sawfish the researchers found earlier, sank slowly to the bottom. During the dives, they also detected signs of groundwater within the hole. They discovered specific forms of radium and radon, which indicated a potential link between the sinkhole and the Floridan aquifer. This raised the possibility that water from beneath Florida's surface could be connected to the Gulf of Mexico through deep, concealed pathways. Whether Green Banana would exhibit the same signs remained uncertain. However, whatever the team discovered during their exploration would provide more answers regarding what occurred inside these dark, buried sinkholes off the coast. The scientists preparing to explore the Green Banana agreed that the name sounded more like a bar in Key West than a deep sinkhole in the ocean. The hole begins about 155 feet below the surface and sits roughly 50 miles offshore from St. Petersburg. According to Larry Borden, a commercial fisherman and boat captain who has known about the spot for decades, the name originated in the mid-1970s. A boat captain had seen a green banana peel floating near what fishermen then called a spring. Mr. Borden said the term spring dated back to the 1530s, when the Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto spent time in the region. Back then, fresh water reportedly flowed from some of the holes. Centuries later, spear fishermen like Mr. Borden often gathered around these spots and wondered how deep they went. Eventually, Mr. Borden informed Kurt Bowen, a diver and friend, about the Green Banana. In 1993, Mr. Bowen became one of the first to reach the bottom and create a map of the hole. He later published an article in Advanced Diver magazine, which he owned. The article stated that the Gulf floor had so many holes that if someone drained all the water, it would resemble Swiss cheese. In case you don't know much about Florida coastline, let's talk a little about it. The Florida coastline. Florida's geological history dates back over 530 million years, when a shallow sea covered the southeastern part of the United States. The state began to take shape around 300 million years ago, when the supercontinent Pangaea was forming. At that time, land that is now part of Africa collided with North America, adding new rock layers to Florida, some of which originated from volcanic activity far away. Although Florida has no volcanoes today, geologists have discovered signs of volcanic rock deep underground. These signs date back to eruptions that occurred when Florida was still underwater during the Paleozoic and Mesozoic eras. Traces of basalt, a type of hardened lava, were found in core samples extracted from the earth. These buried rock layers indicate that underwater volcanoes contributed to the formation of parts of Florida's land. Some of the sinkholes and caves in the state today developed over these old volcanic deposits, which have gradually eroded over time. The soil in some areas still contains minerals left behind by those ancient eruptions, which helps certain plants to thrive. The Floridan Aquifer, a vast underground freshwater reservoir, runs beneath most of the state and surfaces in springs where limestone is exposed. These features indicate karst terrain formed by the dissolution of rocks like limestone, resulting in empty caves in the potential for sinkholes. Shifts in sea levels linked to global ice changes have significantly impacted Florida's land history. Approximately 130,000 to 115,000 years ago, the seas were 6 to 9 meters higher than they are now, covering much of the Florida platform and leaving behind fossil coral reefs and shell piles visible in areas like the Florida Keys and Southwest Florida. Lower seas unveiled more of the platform during colder periods, shaping the state's current shores. These fluctuations resulted in layers of limestone, sandy deposits, and phosphate beds, particularly in Bone Valley, which supplies 80% of the phosphate used for fertilizer in the United States. Florida's coasts and seas are equally active. The Gulf Coast features sunken karst formations, such as sinkholes and caves, which were formed when sea levels were lower, approximately 8,000 to 12,000 years ago. Now submerged, these areas support a diverse array of marine life and are the focus of scientific study. While rising seas, eroding shorelines, and depleting aquifers pose significant challenges, they are established concerns rather than crises. Meanwhile, 3 weeks prior now, a separate study provided new insight into Florida's red tides. These harmful events have impacted the state's coast for years, resulting in both environmental damage and significant financial costs. For the first time, scientists discovered dozens of viruses linked to these tides. The red water resulted from large algae blooms triggered by a combination of ocean currents, rising temperatures, and nutrient buildup. These tides harm sea life, birds, and even people. Some beaches had to close, especially in late summer and early fall, when the tides typically appeared. According to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, red tides could persist for 3 to 5 months and extend across hundreds of square miles. Jean Lim, a researcher at the College of Marine Sciences at the University of South Florida, said the findings marked a turning point. Speaking to The Independent, she explained that while scientists already knew viruses played a role in algae blooms, they had not yet identified the ones connected to Carenia brevis, the organism responsible for red tides. Now, with the identification of new viruses, researchers hope to gain a deeper understanding of how these blooms form. The research published in the journal Sphere used viral metagenomics to study DNA from past red tides. Scientists believe this new understanding could help them predict and limit future outbreaks. Florida is one of the most beautiful places for vacations and relaxation. However, beneath its surface lie secrets from millions of years ago. How do you think these discoveries will affect the future of humanity? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.